I mean, we are on the edge of a dark precipice where the rule of law doesn't exist, at least at the federal level. And that, I don't think people fully understand that yet.
That's conservative lawyer George Conway laying out a scenario that would have seemed far-fetched until recently. But it's taking on fresh significance given this judge's determination that the administration already is defying his orders and is accused in a second case involving suspended U.S. aid workers of also defying a court order. In this case, though, Rhode Island Chief Federal Judge John McConnell Jr. has already made his determination and issued a warning in the form of a citation at the very top of today's ruling. It reads, quote, "Persons who make private determinations of the law and refuse to obey an order generally risk criminal contempt, even if the order is ultimately ruled incorrect." And this is what he says members of the Trump administration are doing, disobeying his temporary restraining order, which blocks the administration's freeze on dispersing federal grants already allocated by Congress. Now, Judge McConnell writes, the defendants received notice of the TRO. The order is clear and unambiguous, and there are no impediments to the defendants' compliance with the order. The judge then orders the administration to immediately restore the frozen funding, end any funding pause, and, quote, immediately take every step to effectuate the temporary restraining order. He does not, however, say what will happen if the defendant on the president's order simply says, no, make me, which not even Richard Nixon did during Watergate, but which this president's statement suggests is a possibility. Here he is on a radio broadcast tonight.
Judges should be ruling. They shouldn't be dictating what you're supposed to be doing.
The president is saying judges should be ruling, but somehow not saying anything in their rulings about what the people they're ruling on should do. Here he is talking with Fox News for a taped interview which aired last night.
The day you're not allowed to look for theft and fraud, etc., then we don't have much of a country. So no judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision.
Well, this follows a tweet by Vice President Vance, which reads, if a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general and how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Well, in a moment, we'll talk to Senator Amy Klobuchar, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee. She joins us to weigh in on that, and there's plenty more to talk about, including this from 4 years ago. J.D. Vance's advice to Donald Trump should he become president. Again, namely, quote, fire every civil servant in the administrative state, he said, end quote, and then dare the courts to stop him.
And when the courts, because you will get taken to court, and then when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
Well, that was J.D. Vance in 2021. President Jackson's declaration is believed to be apocryphal. On the other hand, Trump's public statements on executive power superseding the courts, they were made on camera and go back to his first term.
I have an Article 2 where I have the right to do whatever I want as president.
When the president does it, it's not illegal?
I'm just saying a president under Article 2, it's very strong. Read it. Do you have Article 2? Read it.
Article 2 lays out the power of the executive branch, which are considerable and which only grew with the Supreme Court's ruling in the immunity case United States v. Trump. What the president does not mention, though, is the responsibilities laid out in Article 2, including that he shall, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed, which you would think excludes defying court orders. And what do the top members of the House and Senate, both of them Republicans, make of this? Well, asked off camera by CNN's Manu Raju whether the administration should comply with court orders, Senate Majority Leader John Thune merely said that the courts have got, quote, an important role to play. And House Speaker Johnson did not say. Once again, a lot to start off the week. CNN's Kaitlan Collins joins us from Washington. So what, if anything, is the president signaling tonight about how he'll respond to these federal court orders?
It's not clear yet. Of course, the legal option here is to appeal this, Anderson, and to continue with the legal recourse here. But the question is he adopting this strategy of what you're hearing there, what we are hearing from two of his top advisors, the vice president and Elon Musk, about potentially defying these orders. Now, there is some nuance in what each of them is saying, and this is something that I've been hearing from my sources and from people all day, which is the difference here. And J.D. Vance's tweet that he posted saying about, generals being fired or the attorney general's using her discretion to prosecute who the Justice Department believes should be prosecuted. What he said in that last sentence of that tweet, where he said legitimate power there, the executive's legitimate power, that is the word that is underlined and emphasized here, because when he argues that it is their legitimate power, he's saying, therefore, the judge does not have jurisdiction over this and cannot tell them what to do. What Elon Musk is saying is that this judge who put this freeze on he and his aides being able to access this sensitive data at the Treasury Department should be impeached for his ruling. Now, those are two different things. J.D. Vance is not that far behind Elon Musk there. But the question here is how the White House plans to handle this going forward, and whether or not they are going to continue to just try to appeal this in the courts, maybe make it up to the Supreme Court potentially within a matter of weeks for some of these matters, or if they are frustrated with the judiciary blocking what Trump is trying to do via executive action with the federal government, what that next step is. It's not clear yet from the White House what they are going to do and what the strategy is going to be here, and whether or not they will continue to simply appeal it. But Trump tonight in a new interview was also complaining about the judiciary getting in the way of what the executive branch is trying to do.
And the president signed some executive orders in front of cameras today, and it was initially listed as a closed press. He didn't get any questions about these court cases during the photo op. Did that surprise you?
It is surprising because obviously this is the main story here in Washington today, which is what is going to happen here, because Trump has not really faced any resistance since he has retaken power just a few weeks ago, as he's been signing executive orders every single day. Some of them smaller and less consequential to everyday Americans, certainly some of them very impactful and carry a lot of weight. And as he's been going through that, really it is only the courts that we have seen start to step in, whether it comes to offering federal workers buyouts or trying to overturn birthright citizenship, or as we are here when it comes to Elon Musk's and his employees' purview and just how expansive it is, and what this looks like with all these other matters and executive orders that he's signed. That's the question here of what this is going to look like going forward, because Trump has come into office emboldened in a way that he really has never been before, facing almost no resistance on Capitol Hill, certainly not to his cabinet nominees or from any Republicans, not really anything from Democrats, only from the judicial branch is he facing any of those obstacles and challenges. The question is how he views that and his purview and how he can respond to that. Certainly we are seeing a lot of critics of this White House suggest that they are on the cusp of a constitutional crisis, depending on how they handle this.
Can you put this order from the federal judge in Rhode Island in perspective?
It's important to separate this case from all the others. All the other cases are about challenging whether the Trump administration is doing the right thing, whether it's birthright citizenship or firing public employees. What's different about this Rhode Island case is that he has already ruled that the Trump administration was wrong to withhold these funds. And now he's saying they are not obeying my order to restore the funding. And so the issue in this case, which is really more important than the underlying issues about whether the money should be paid or not, is whether a federal court order should be followed. Going back to 1803, in the famous case of Marbury versus Madison, the Supreme Court said that it's the courts that ultimately decide, that have the last word on what is constitutional and what not. It's not up to the executive, it's not up to Congress, it's up to the court.
Which is not what J.D. Vance is saying.
Which is exactly what he is not saying, which is saying that the risk here is that the executive can just do what he wants without regard to the Constitution, and that is a situation we've never been in. I think you mentioned earlier, when the Supreme Court told Richard Nixon in 1974 to turn over the White House tapes, he didn't want to do it, but he did it because the Supreme Court told him to. The Trump administration is appealing this order, which is certainly they have every right to do, but if the order stands and they defy it, we're in an area that we have literally never been in before.
Is there an enforcement mechanism in that case?
I'm going to give you a ringing answer of I don't know. Because, yes, in theory, the answer is, there is a contempt power that is enforceable by the United States Marshals, where the United States Marshals could go out, and their usual job is to enforce contempt, whether it means making someone show up to court. That's how it usually works.
Who runs the U.S. Marshals?
The Department of Justice. You think Pam Bondi is going to tell the Marshal Service to enforce an order against Donald Trump? And how does a court tell the President of the United States to honor a judicial decision? I don't know how that would work. Could he impose fines? He's certainly not going to lock up the president. I mean, but it just shows what an unprecedented situation this is when you have at least the possibility, and also if you listen to what the president and vice president are saying, it certainly suggests that it's a real possibility that they'll simply ignore what a court says.